Have you checked the children? Use your little match sometimes.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Sometimes that is better.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Horror Show. I'm Cecil, Laird.
Robert the Wolfman.
Jaime and Fuego here.
And we are here to do another patron request. This is yet another Seth T. Miller request because it is, as you know, it is a full moon tonight or in the vicinity, depending on if this falls on a hail day or not. So, yes, we are going to be reviewing another werewolf movie. This one titled Where from 2013.
Yes,
I believe so.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, overall thoughts on this one for me are, I definitely enjoyed it. It is another one, not exactly like, but in the vein of Wolf of Snow Hollow, where it's not your typical werewolf movie. So I dug that about it, and not like it's goofy like that one. This is actually a really serious take on this story, but it worked well for what it was, even though it wasn't necessarily, like I said, your typical werewolf movie. So yeah, overall, I definitely enjoyed it.
Yeah, this is definitely one that I've enjoyed basically since it came out. I've watched this a few different times. The one thing I definitely would say I like the most about this movie is, again, it's not your typical werewolf style movie. They took a lot more of the tropes on actual lycanthropy attributes. So like with our main character with the excess hair and whatnot, that's called hypertrichosis, and that's just also known as werewolfism. So those were nice little nods and everything that I liked that they used with the character, but they didn't go overly heavy-handed to where you're in a straight wolfman werewolf form. But they did do subtle little changes and everything like that, and especially one scene that we had towards the end, like we actually had some changes to his physical features and whatnot. But it was definitely it was light, but it was well done enough to where you could still believe the character and what he was going through. But yeah, overall thoughts, it was definitely a recommended movie if you guys haven't checked this out.
Yeah, I was impressed with this one, actually, especially for the sheer fact that I typically don't like films that approach things visually like this. I mean, it's not technically found footage, right?
But no, it's not.
It's like
but
a
it's
different,
shot like found
footage.
It's
it's very shaky and shot like
yeah, it's shot like found footage, but there are angles where there are no cameras.
Yeah.
So it can't be found footage.
Yeah, exactly. So it seems like there's a film crew there with you, but you know, it's of that intimacy, so to speak. Lots of like news footage and things of that nature, but it was all masterfully put together. This is the same guy who went on to do both of the Boy movies, from what I was reading. So I preferred this much more than those. And I think he also did The Devil Inside, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
So that was another big one of his. So from a stylistic standpoint, this was good. And even though I didn't enjoy a lot of this legal team that you follow around, I thought they were kind of idiots personally, especially the lead lady. But since I'd never seen a vampire tale told from this angle,
werewolf.
Sorry, I said vampire. Jesus Christ. It's because of all the Lost Boys talk that we were doing, right? Okay, but a werewolf film that took this approach and this angle as far as whether the possibility of this actually being actual or whatever, I was impressed with. And just taking the whole legal team standpoint, like defending somebody who may or may not be said werewolf, and I know we'll get more into that in the story. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, why don't you go ahead, jump into it.
Yeah. So the film essentially begins with a very brutal attack of a family. Even though you only see a couple bits and pieces of it here and there, we'll get to it in sound design and effects, but the ripping of bones and flesh and screaming, all this stuff. There's a young boy, there is his mother and then father. Two of them are killed, being the boy and the father, and then the mother is so mangled that you have no idea if she's gonna actually get through this or not. And she is describing this horrible animal attack, and then shortly thereafter there is a gentleman who fits those big hairy features as far as a foreboding physical presence, covered in hair, all that stuff. He's taken into custody, and of course you have to have some sort of legal defense team, and there's this woman originally from the United States who spent a lot of time in France, so she is the head of the defense team, and she has a former love interest that comes to assist, and then she has a new maybe love interest. You never really figure out for sure. But so there are people affiliated with her that are trying to, get some information together to see if they can and if they should defend him. She has a very virtuousness at the like almost to the point of arrogance about her, which I found a little off-putting. Didn't really like her character, but that was how she was written. And so the story really just goes down to some medical testing that goes down, and then her butting heads with the French authorities who are trying to convict this guy. There's also some cloak and dagger behind the curtain stuff about community conspiracies and whatever that we won't really. That was
actually a nice little throw in. Just it was a nice little sprinkle into the story.
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting in that regard. The fact that this, the possibility of said creature, who or whatever it may be, is long since documented, and could be generational. Could it be this person? Could it not be? And so there was a lot of intrigue, actually, in my estimation. I really found it refreshing in that regard as far as story goes. And then, it's getting that clarification in our second and third act. There's really not much else we can say without spoiling beyond that, I would say. So
yeah, I enjoyed how the story played out. It kept me wondering how it was going to resolve, so I was engaged the entire time. Yes, I wasn't the biggest fan of the main character either, because she's not written to be very likable at times, even though she's trying to be, virtuous about everything. It's just doesn't come off great sometimes. But yeah, overall the story I felt was effective and well told, because it kept me engaged the whole time.
I would definitely, most definitely. And again, real quick, it was our main character. Stupid decisions that could have been definitely avoided. But other than that, like the real story is about Talon, our main werewolf guy, basically. But no, that was the nice thing I definitely enjoyed about the story. Is it was just a boy and his mother that were basically in a couple miles, I think, away from where the initial attack happened, which is how he became our suspect. But going even just little nods on the story and how the design of Talon and things like that for the story, it worked out really nice, because again, it's that, well, is he a werewolf? Is he just a man? Like, what's going on? Other than that, there's not a whole lot you can really dive on the story without going for spoiler stuff. Other than that, I would just say, again, going back, check the movie out if you guys haven't watched it yet. It's definitely worth it.
The characters, all the acting I thought was well done. Some of the characters were, rubbing me the wrong way, but it's not that the acting was bad. So I felt that the acting was all good through the movie. How about you guys?
Same. Personally, I don't think anyone really stuck out. I would say the most annoying thing is between our main character, her decisions, but even with her assistant, on just the unnecessarily butting of heads with her former fling or whatever, and like that. It's just, you're there to do a job, just get the damn job done. Just shut up, kind of thing. Yeah, there's really, I think I'll touch on that one, Fuego.
Yeah, I was also intrigued, and it makes sense that a lot of the time you're going to have these defense people butting heads with the law enforcement that is trying so hard to prosecute, and her back and forth with the French guy who is the head of the investigation and has some ties to the bigger aspect of potential prejudice of this character, whether he was responsible for these crimes or not. I thought that was good. And as far as like this brutish guy that you do sympathize with, whatever he is, he actually brought that to a few scenes in particular, with some of his facial expressions, his eyes more so than anything, almost looking like a wounded animal that's been imprisoned and is in this sort of captivity, whether unjustifiably or not. I thought he sold it well. Talon, you said, was the name of the character,
his name was
right?
Talon. And from what I could find, this was actually the only movie that he's been in.
He sold it for me, man.
Yeah,
he really did.
Especially just that. It was that hulking, mousy kind of thing. Like, that was. It's sometimes hard to kind of do, because you look at him, we're like,
gentle giant.
That's not always easy to kind of pull off.
Yeah, and there's also a certain character transformation in the third act where I was like, I didn't think that actor had it in him. I thought that was actually
that was very well
good.
done, most definitely. And that's, again, we can't really say too much on that one, because that is a
Don't
Kind
want
of
to
a big spoiler for the story.
Now, as far as we'll get into the effects, but first, just real quick, like we mentioned briefly, the camera work is very chaotic, and it is shot like a found footage movie. So if you're not a fan of that, you may not be a fan of how this movie is shot. I don't think it hampers the story, but I definitely don't know if it necessarily enhances it. But it's something to make note of.
It definitely is, and personally, there was a couple times, especially in the precinct, that it was really apparent that it was just how shaky the camera work was, and it looked very grainy. More so than not, you like, especially towards the end, we had a little bit better camera work. The cinematography of this movie was not the best part of it. I think we can pretty much all agree on that one.
Yeah, and there's even, without spoiling specifically, there's a couple moments midway through the film where there's an escape going down.
Oh, yeah.
It almost felt like Chronicle to me, Josh Trank's Chronicle a little bit, especially with some of the local news coverage and
the security footage kind of stuff, interplay,
jumping off buildings and some of this other stuff without getting too into it. But that I guess more so is a combination of how the script was playing out those particular beats with how they decided to film it. But I mean, I was never, despite not always liking this visual aesthetic and this approach, I wasn't as taken aback and just irritated by it as I have been with certain other films of a similar visual approach.
I'm personally not a fan of found footage films, but this one is definitely a little easier to get through because again, it's not a found footage film, but
yeah,
it's fun. I'm clearly the biggest fan of it in the group as I recorded that 40-year video that
As
a
far as
number
some
of
the
years
choices,
had found footage. as
like
my
don't get me wrong,
favorite,
like some of them are done well, but I don't know, it just gets to the point where I'm getting more of a headache trying to watch and follow everything where it goes.
Effects wise though, they were done very well, especially when you see when you get to see the aftermaths of the attack. It's gross,
brutal.
Disturbing, but it's
The
well done
autopsy.
effects.
Autopsy
Well done
scene.
effects. There's some digital, body effects at times when someone's doing something that can't physically be done by a human, but it still all works pretty well for the movie.
And I think the nice thing that helped with the effects of what they used is their camera work and it being semi-grainy. I think it helped to blend everything a little bit easier. But no, going back to even my original thought on the design of Talon and the werewolf part of it, it was subtle, but it was those nice enough changes where you could think, okay, well, this is an actual werewolf. But going to, it's like they definitely utilized that whole hypertrichosis thing of the excess body hair, things like that. And there's another word, but basically it's just the enhanced brow features and things like that. But again, it falls back into the whole lycanthropy legend, stuff like that. Not a whole lot of personally other visuals besides Talon and one of our later people. Not a whole lot personally.
Yeah, it's all about the few attacks that we get. There's during a couple escapes and then during that ultimate confrontation that we have later on. And I, chatted over Cecil a moment ago, which is my bad. I do it sometimes too, guys. But the autopsy scene where they're actually looking practically at what's left of the boy, which is really hard to look at and looked very convincing. You see the father as well, and even when the mother is it's touch and go whether she's actually in the eyeball and all that stuff. It was gross and very convincing just seeing what was left of her and just being still alive when that's all that's left of you. And
here's my
just
question
envisioning
on
the
that.
excruciating pain. Why she didn't?
Well, it's
maybe...
like she survived a werewolf attack.
Well, she didn't last a month.
Oh, she ended up dying, right?
Good point.
Oh,
I did
okay, I
not
forgot
even
about
think
that.
about that. Yeah.
Okay.
And we're talking mangled as opposed to scratched.
But that's the
bitten
thing,
or
though,
something.
too. So technically, even still, with her surviving that attack, even a month within that time, she would have started healing. Technically, in the old terms of a werewolf and everything.
This was forging its own lore.
No, it definitely was, and
definitely
that was
say.
the nice original plot that they used. Again, it was going back. They used actual legends, like the legend of like the werewolf and stuff like that, to play into this character of Talon.
Well, and also going into these actual biological afflictions that people do
Exactly.
have in real
Yep.
life, and the plausibility of it all. Man, there's another scene where a head gets smashed in late in the film that I thought, I mean, it's a horror trope, but it was gross, and especially with the particular character it happens to. I was just like,
but at the same time, like you don't feel bad for that person. You feel bad for him because of like personally, it's almost justified on what he did because it's her fault.
Yeah.
Or their fault.
Oh yeah, yeah.
All
So,
right, well,
Yeah,
skating
yeah,
spoilers.
we're getting into the
Yeah,
spoilers.
Yeah, trying not to.
All right, so that's going to do it for our thoughts on Where. Thank you again to Seth T. Miller for requesting it. If you guys want to become a patron like Seth, you can do so at the link down in the description box below. Thanks very much for watching. Until next time, I've been Cecil Laird.
Robert the Wolfman.
Gracias, Jaime and Fuego.
And remember, stay scared.